everyone, I'm Matt, and welcome to the Good Trouble Show. We like to talk about UAPs, otherwise known as UFOs, and as we know, these things have been acting with impunity in our airspace for quite some time, particularly our military's restricted airspace. This, of course, has members of Congress alarmed as the Pentagon seemingly continues to cover it up, lying to Congress and the American people. Today, in coordination with the Liberation Times and their story that just went live, we have the witness to the Langley UFO UAP swarming incident, and today he will share videos and never-before-seen photographs of the UFOs. But first, please hit the subscribe and thumbs up buttons on YouTube and let us know what you think about this episode in the comments. You can also find us on Twitter at Good Trouble Show and all other social media sites at The Good Trouble Show. And of course, we are on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. Just search for The Good Trouble Show and you will certainly find us. We also need help keeping the lights on. You can become a supporter of The Good Trouble Show by going to www.patreon.com/The Good Trouble Show. And for the price of a coffee, you can support our work. Finally, on YouTube, Super Chats are open and are another great way to support this show. As always, I want to thank our Patreon and YouTube members who are our financial supporters, our chat moderators who volunteer their time. Usually we do our show on Sundays at noon, and we were lucky to get these folks to help out in the chat this go-around on Saturdays. We're usually not on the air at this time. And of course, we want to thank all of you who are watching our show and support our show. We always appreciate the generosity of your time. Anyway, we have some amazing shows coming up. One in particular tomorrow at noon Pacific. We have, let's see here, Dr. Avi Loeb, who will be on at 12 noon Pacific. We are always super excited to hear what he has to say. This will be his first time on the show, and yeah, we're super excited. Bring your questions. We'll definitely be asking audience questions, and yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Before usually I roll right into the show, and I want to bring up a clip. So as many of you know, Steven Greenstreet, who's a video editor at the New York Post, recently posted an interview with Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, who is the former director of the Pentagon's UFO UAP office, AARO, or the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. And I want to play this clip because I think it's important, and I think it needs to be addressed.
I think that is disturbing and should be a flag for the national security community, because how can you then trust those people if they are not objective enough to understand evidentiary-based assertions like that? How can you trust them with our national secrets?
So, I'm going to address you, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. So basically what you are telling everybody, what you are essentially threatening, is anyone that has gone to Congress, that holds a high security clearance or has held high security clearances, essentially what you're saying is that these folks are a national security threat. And I was going to write something up before I went on air, and just kind of ran out of time. We were having some, solar storm technical issues. But I just want folks to stop and think about what he just said. Especially, we know that we have members of Congress and their staffers, people on Capitol Hill in Washington, that watch this show. Stop and think for a minute. The guy that was installed to run the Pentagon's UFO office, who was supposed to just look at data and not spin crazy conspiracy theories and whatnot. Here you had the Pentagon install this guy to run this office, which is costing taxpayers untold millions upon millions of dollars, I would imagine. And this is the kind of leadership that gets installed in there. You have a guy, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, who is now working at Lawrence Livermore Labs. Lawrence Livermore Labs is one of the nation's top nuclear laboratories. A guy like him is going to be in that position holding the nation's highest security clearances, managing things, I'm guessing, like our nation's security clearances. So Sean Kirkpatrick can sit and lecture the people that have had the balls to go to Congress and the balls to go to the Inspector General, and then he can proceed to lecture all of us in a public forum that these folks are a national security threat. People that are trying to get to the questions, people that are saying to Congress, look, you are being lied to by the CIA and the Pentagon, and it's been going on for decades. They are interfering, they are actively interfering with Congress doing their damn job. So Sean Kirkpatrick, I don't know who you think you are. You clearly lack, I would say, the scientific rigor, and you certainly lack any kind of scientific reason to go on multiple public forums and disparage David Grush, tell members of Congress that they've been hoodwinked by some kind of religion, UFO religion, tell members of Congress, members of Congress, their staffers. A lot of these folks, depending on the committees they sit on, they hold security clearances. They get to hear and see the classified product. So Sean Kirkpatrick, I don't know who is lining your pocket. Frankly, I am just flabbergasted that you, sir, even hold any kind of security clearance. And quite frankly, I'm flabbergasted that the United States Department of Energy would let you go in a public forum, multiple public forums, to trash whistleblowers such as David Grush and anyone else that has the actual courage to do the right thing for their country and talk to Congress about what is going on. They're members of Congress, they're congressmen and women, they're senators, the Inspector General, the DOD Inspector General, the IC Inspector General, and Sean Kirkpatrick, you have the balls, you have the gall to get up and spread that kind of garbage. It's un-American. You, sir, are frankly un-American to be pursuing in what is obviously a full-blown disinformation effort to disparage people that have given it all, thrown away their careers, thrown away their security clearances to do what they know to be the right thing for the country, which is to get at the truth and to just ask our members of Congress to investigate and figure out what the hell is going on. Meanwhile, you sit back in your cushy reward. I'm sure that was given by the Pentagon. I would imagine Ronald Moultrie probably had something to do with that since he worked at Battelle. So while you're kicking back in your post-retirement thing, there are actually men and women who are trying to do the right thing for this country. People like Lou Elizondo, people like David Grush, Chris Mellon, untold others who actually care more about their country than they do about their own ego or their careers. That is called love of country. What you're doing, I have no idea, but it certainly is not to the benefit of this nation, the national security establishment, the Department of Energy, which, again, I'm frankly surprised they let you go rogue, if we even want to call that, because I absolutely believe you're doing this on behalf of the intelligence community, the intelligence establishment. But this is nothing but pure garbage that you are putting out. And quite frankly, you should be ashamed of yourself. And quite frankly, people need to look at your security clearance, sir, and how you are able to maintain it while running around spouting disinformation, which is in clear legal violation of, I can't tell you the regulation. I know Lou Elizondo put it out there, but it is illegal for members of the intelligence community to engage in disinformation tactics or warfare on the American public. And that is exactly what you are doing. It is exactly what the CIA is doing. It is exactly what the United States Air Force is doing. It is exactly what the Pentagon is doing. And this, frankly, it's un-American, and people should be calling their representatives and demanding better, because this is it's just unacceptable. Anyway, enough of that rant. Anyway, okay. In March of this year, the online publication The War Zone released. Let's see here. I got behind on my little rant. Released. Here we go. This story. That was called Mysterious Drones Swarmed Langley Air Force Base for Weeks. The unidentified drones were such an issue that assets were called in from around the government, including a NASA WB-57 high-altitude jet. Wow. Now, the article detailed how drones, or what they referred to as UAS, or unmanned aerial systems, which is really just a way for them to get around from people looking into this event, which were clearly UAPs or UFOs, swarmed Langley Air Force Base literally for weeks in December. And naturally, of course, Congress demanded answers.
One of the things we have to continue to work on is to continue to understand the technology that's moving forward, and then move at the same pace as it was highlighted. We do have to move faster. And so it's an area that we collectively have to continue to work on. Not only here in defense here in the United States, but also at our forward locations where we have many of our service members deployed.
Okay, former Assistant Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence Christopher Mellon later posted that the Air Force had to relocate the entire F-22 fighter wing at Langley Air Force Base due to the mass size of this disruption in December. The United States Air Force stated that these drones were of, quote, different sizes and configurations. I don't know. I mean, to me, that does not sound like any kind of prosaic drone I know of. Certainly not something that I would even imagine Russia or China would have. It sounds, well, we'll just say it, anomalous. And who better to investigate these incursions into restricted airspace than the Pentagon's UAP office, AARO, who we were just talking about, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, who was leading what I consider to be a bit of a bullshit factory. So you would think that they would have gone directly to AARO. Well, it turns out that is not the case. You would think that the Air Force would actually be banging on AARO's door, right? That's not the case. So just minutes ago, Christopher Sharp, editor-in-chief at the Liberation Times, released a bombshell article. Here it is here. The U.S. government's the U.S. government's UFO office confirms it has not received information on drone incursions over Langley Air Force Base as new information, as new information, new details emerge. I mean, it is just absolutely mind-blowing that the United States Air Force, which I never would have thought would have done this, that they are actually bypassing AARO. And actually, Chris talks about in this article, and I want everyone to go check this article out. It's at liberationtimes.com. After the show, I'll post a link to the article because it just went live. We'll put it in the YouTube description. But yeah, I mean, it is absolutely mind-blowing that they are bypassing AARO, and it makes you wonder why. Anyway, this article is a must-read. I was very fortunate to get a first look at it, and anyway, so for this article, which you will read, Christopher Sharp interviewed a witness who filmed this drone incident. He is joining us today with videos and never-before-seen photos he took of this event. Now, he asked that we do not show his face, so joining us by voice, I'm a little tongue-tied today, please welcome Jonathan Butner. Jonathan, you there?
Yes. Hi,
okay.
Matt. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Sorry, I know I went on a little bit of a rant there about something related, but somewhat completely different. So firstly, thank you very much for joining us. You were, of course, on with our good friend Ross Coulthart, friend of the show on News Nation, and his excellent new podcast on News Nation. So without going into too many specifics, we understand you want to maintain a level of anonymity. Where do you live, and what is your view of Langley Air Force Base?
Yes. So where I was on some family property that's on top of a bluff, directly across the river from Fort Eustis and the Newport News. So I have a very good view of both the base, Newport News, and then Langley is just a few miles behind Newport News from my point of view, right on the other side of the James River.
Okay, understood. Okay, so how close are you to Langley Air Force Base? I mean, do you know like the number of miles from where your vantage point was?
Yes, it's about 11 miles as the crow flies, I would say, from where I am.
Okay, got it. And so what kind of things have you seen in the sky above Langley Air Force Base?
Well, as far as the night on December 14th, I sat down to watch a meteor shower that was called for that night, and around 7:15, I began to see these reddish orange orbs or lights that were coming from the southeast direction, kind of behind me, and were slowly going over the river. They would circle around behind Langley, make a turn, and then go back directly over the base. So I was just watching that, and it began with just one or two, and then it began to increase the number that were coming over.
Now, I want to interrupt you for just a second. I apologize. But before we get into it, I want to kind of get a sense of what you are used to seeing in the skies above Langley or above your home. Clearly, this isn't the first time you've stargazed or looked for meteors. So what are some of the prosaic things that you have seen in terms of like aircraft or satellites, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so typically we do see a lot of Black Hawk helicopters. A lot of those are stationed at Fort Eustis, which is directly across the river. And then as far as in the direction of Langley, they do have the Raptors, which you spoke of. And there's also a couple commercial airports that are also in the area. So on a typical night, you can see several planes, military helicopters, all across the river and in the area.
And how long have you been at this at your home?
It's been about 14 years that we've been here.
So clearly you have seen tons of aircraft, satellite, just kind of like regular sort of prosaic things that anyone that lives near an air base or an airport or some kind of military base, you're used to seeing those things and knowing exactly what they are by how they look and how they sound. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Many nights we sit on the back deck and see planes. And I'm very familiar with what a plane looks like with the FAA. Green on one side, orange blinking lights on the other side of the wing, or even, what a typical helicopter will look like with a light in the middle and a light at the end of the tail rotor.
And because some of this bears a bit of a resemblance to what I've seen, I think, above my home here in Hollywood. And you're used to, like, if you look at a particular light, it's easy also to give a clue, for instance, like the quality of the light, not even like the color, but the quality of it. You can look at that and associate that with a military aircraft or a drone or anything like that, correct?
Yes, yeah. Particularly like if it's one of the Raptors or a fighter jet that's going over, those are typically really loud. You can hear those coming from a good time before you can even see them and afterwards. So yes, I know what the shape of those look like, and what to look for with that. And then as far as any of the larger commercial planes that fly over, they're typically at a very high altitude, or coming in and taking off from one of the local airports.
And have from you said you're several miles away from Langley. I think you said 10 or 11 miles. From that distance, can you hear the jets taking off from Langley, or are you too far away to hear it from that distance?
Not taking off, but if they are coming anywhere in our direction, coming over the water, you can definitely hear the engines going very clearly. If a Black Hawk is directly across the river from us, which is about 3 or 4 miles from where Fort Eustis is, you can hear the chop of the blades very clearly across the river.
And is there much in the way of commercial air traffic that transits above your home?
Yes, on most nights you do see quite a bit. You'll see, since we are kind of the end of the East Coast, close to the ocean, you'll see some larger commercial flights way up in the air going over, and then some of the smaller planes will be landing at the airports that are in Newport News and Williamsburg, which are again across the water, but I have sight lines towards.
So essentially, you have a what appears to be, when you look at that map, you have a pretty good unobstructed view across what is that, a bay there to Langley? Is that correct?
Yes, it's the James River. But the river's very wide. It's probably about 4 miles wide, and then Langley is just a direct sight line to directly where the base is.
I see. Okay. Okay. So before we get into, I just want to get a bit of a background here. Before we get into the photos and the videos you took and details of what you saw, tell us about what the evening was like before any of this happened, and sort of what were you doing and what made you go outside?
Sure. Yeah. So it was December 14th, a Thursday. I just finished work and came out to the property. I was just planning on sitting on the deck, and it was dusk, going right into night when I arrived. So I was sitting there, and I was just planning on seeing if I saw any meteors that night. It was pretty quiet when I first sat down, but I did see a couple Black Hawk helicopters that were right across the river from me. But within just a few minutes, they both seemed to go and land. So it was very quiet out right after that. So this would be around 7:15 at night, and that's when I first saw the first blinking orange light start coming over the river.
And we'll talk about that here in a second. I just want to say one thing that I did yesterday is I went on FlightAware and looked at the historical flight traffic for that day during that time frame. And I saw during that time frame, and I believe I looked from 7 p.m. till around 10 p.m., I think I saw like maybe 2 commercial jets fly into whatever the airport is, and that was it. I didn't see anything else. Now, of course, military air traffic will typically not show up on on any sort of public radar site such as FlightAware or it was a Flight Radar 24. I'm not sure. I get the two confused. But anyway, the takeaway is that when I looked, there was literally nothing during that time frame short of like one or two things during that 2-hour period, and that was it. So it was very, very quiet that evening. Is it typical during that particular day and time for it to be that quiet in your experience?
No, not in my experience. Typically, there is a lot more traffic, either military or commercial. We will usually see, almost on some nights it'll seem like a nonstop flow of commercial planes coming in and taking off and heading up or down the East Coast. But yes, as I said, like right about 7:15, it was very quiet over the river and in this area.
And I understand at Langley there is a significant F-22 fighter wing stationed there. How often do you see the F-22s flying around?
We will see them sometimes. We're not completely in their training zone. A lot of times they will go straight out and head over the ocean and to do a lot of their exercises. But as Ryan Graves mentioned in his interview with Ross, this is the forward base for Washington, D.C. This is the first line of defense for fighters to protect D.C. and get up there. So, it's a very important position. And as Ryan has mentioned, Ryan Graves, a pilot that was based out of Oceana Air Force Base, which is also very close to where I am, that he would fly out of there and go over the ocean and do training quite a bit.
Is the I've never seen an F-22, let alone heard one. Sound-wise, are they much different than, say, like other jets you might have seen, such as an F-16, or is there anything distinctive about the F-22 from an audio point of view, other than it just being a loud jet, obviously?
I wouldn't say there's much of a difference between different types of fighter jets, but the fighter jets themselves, as a group, are very loud, especially when the jet is doing any kind of maneuver like increasing in altitude or doing any kinds of turns or anything. That's a much louder jet wash that you hear from very far away.
Understood. And as you mentioned, this Air Force Base, which I understand is also a joint base as well, this is the first line of defense in terms of anything that may be from a airborne point of view threatening any of our buildings in the Capitol. Correct. So if somebody flies too close to the White House and NORAD goes to dispatch a intercept, it generates out of Langley. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding. And, also in this area, we're talking about Norfolk Naval Base, which is the largest naval base in the world, Oceana, Langley, with all the different, NASA and CIA that are headquartered there. And there's just a lot of important facilities in the area. And, possibly most importantly, D.C. is under their protection.
Got it. So really, this is from a strategic point of view in terms of the defense of the United States, defending our airspace. This base is absolutely critical.
Yes, from my understanding, and yes, it definitely is.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is have you walk us through the story. And afterwards, what I want to do is then go through the videos and photos that you've shared. This will be the first time I understand that you have shared these photos publicly, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, because I know these things are kind of out of order, that's why I thought it would be good to just walk us through sequentially what you saw. And let's maybe just take it from just a few minutes before you saw something that you thought was out of the ordinary.
Okay. Well, yes, I came out and was just sat down on the dock to just kind of sit for the evening and hopefully see some meteors. But right as it was getting dark, I had just sat down, and that's when I began to see this reddish orange flashing light that was moving slowly over the river, as I mentioned before. And at first, I just saw one, and then it was another, and then another with a space in between. So didn't draw a lot of my attention at first, but I kind of started keeping my eye on them, and soon they began to come in more. they would stay at the same speed and about the same altitude, but once they would pass over where Langley is and then head back eastward in the direction of it. And as they got to the area which I believe the base to be at, they would some of them would stop, and they were hovering over the base. And that's when I first began to think, I think that's right where Langley Air Force Base should be. That's very strange that these orange craft are stopping and hovering over the base. And what really cemented that for me is I started seeing these searchlights coming up from the ground, and they weren't really directly pointing at the orbs as they went by, but they began to go back and forth quickly from left to right. And from there I was like, yeah, something definitely is going on. This is a very strange things that I've never seen before. And as it continues, the orbs would kind of hover over Langley for different amounts of time and then go back out the direction they came. But just a steady line of them were just always coming in, circling, and then going directly over the base. And at times, I would see around seven at least, orbs that would be hovering over the base at different altitudes, and they'd be blinking that orangish red color, going from orangish red to a white at different pulses. It was never a consistent pulse with any of them. It was very, they varied differently on which altitude they were at and the frequency of they were blinking.
Looking at this map again, looking at the orb flight path, that looks as if it began sort of southeast. Could you tell exactly, or maybe just sort of approximate, what was the furthest away point looking southeast that you noticed it? For instance, is there a landmark that you first saw it at, and that landmark is 20 miles away? Was there any way of indicating exactly how far off they originated from you, from a distance point of view?
Yes, as far as from where I sat, it seemed to be coming from the Virginia Beach area. The southeast direction from where I was. That seemed to be where they were coming from, and heading towards the base, and that was the same direction that they left in as well, which is in the direction of Oceana Air Force Base, and that part of Norfolk, that area.
How big would you say the how big would you say the hit the wrong button there and get rid of that? How large would you say the drone was, or the drones, the orbs? What they are characterizing as drones. What would you approximate their physical size to be? These orbs.
From where I sat, I feel very strongly that they were about the size of small cars, and they were completely round. There was no wings, no rotors. The lights were the vehicle, the craft. They were just seemed to be completely round, like orbs, as they came in. And, I saw probably upwards of around 40 of them throughout the course of the 2 hours that of the event.
What was the closest you would say one came to your vantage point?
I would say maybe slightly within 10 miles. But as I mentioned, I'm up on a pretty high bluff looking in that direction. So, and there was nothing else out in the sky. So I had a pretty clear view of them as they went around and over. And I can definitely say these, we're not like drones that you can put in a backpack, or, even at the largest size I've ever seen. I would not probably be able to have seen those. These were large, glowing orbs.
Did they emit any sound that you were able to detect? I understand this was quite a ways from you.
Yes, but no, I did not hear anything throughout the entire event from any of the craft. It was very quiet. All you could hear was kind of the waves coming on, lapping on the shore.
And aircraft that you have observed at that approximate distance, you mentioned that you thought that probably the closest they came to you was around 10 miles away. In your experience, when you've viewed craft from that distance, have you been able to hear them?
Yes, yeah. Typically, as they go over, it can depend on the weather and the wind and things like that. But a lot of times, the river is a kind of helps with acoustics, and on a quiet night, you can usually hear any aircraft that goes over. Yeah.
Have you?
Excuse me.
Got it. Oh, no problem, Jonathan. Have you ever observed any drones that they were obviously drones in that area before?
No, definitely not. I have a very small one myself, but yes, I have never seen any drones. The typical four-bladed ones that you see. I've never seen any of those over the river or on my side of the river at all.
Now, you mentioned that when these orbs were over Langley Air Force Base, that you saw some ground-based searchlights that were waving around in the air. About how many do you recall seeing?
It would be one or two. It was very random when they would come, though. Like, I tried to film one of them, but they would only shine for just a few seconds. They would just shine, go back and forth, and then turn off. It was almost like a communication, or just it was very strange what they were doing. But they only did it probably about a handful of times during the event, where they would come on and then turn off.
And what gives you the indication or the feeling that they were they were using these ground-based searchlights to communicate? Was it like strobing, like what you would think would be like a Morse code, or what about it made you think that?
Because it wasn't like it would not come on and try to focus on any of the orbs as they were over the base. They would shine up, and then, like I said, kind of like just very randomly go from left to right, and then turn off, and then a minute later they would turn on and kind of do the same. But yeah, so it was very, very different. I would say that the orbs, as they went over there, they did have some very interesting kind of pulsing patterns as they went over. Some would be faster than others, and it was very, very unusual.
The back to the searchlights at the base. Did this begin immediately when you saw the orbs begin to operate above the base, or did this occur beforehand?
I would say the first time was maybe 20 minutes into the event, and they probably did it several more times during kind of the peak of the event, which would probably be around 8 p.m. But then they stopped, and that was it. I didn't see them at all at the end, like the last 45 minutes or so.
And this entire event, you would say, what was around 2 hours or so?
Yes,
in length?
2 hours.
Okay.
Yes, about 7:15 to 9 p.m. is when I went back inside, because I didn't see any of the orbs at that time.
Was anyone with you at the time to witness this?
Unfortunately, no. It was just me here.
Understood. Okay, so again, just referring back to the map. So the orb flight path. So it appears that they emanated from southeast off of Virginia Beach, and it looks like they looped around and then overflew Langley. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, they would turn kind of directly in front of me, and then go for a straight line just right over the base. The only changes they would make is they would kind of change elevation a little over the base, and sometimes there would be about 5 to 7 hovering over the base for short periods of time, and then moving on, while others followed that same path coming in from the southeast, going to the north of the base, and then circling around and going directly over. It was like a conveyor belt almost, where they kept the same speed, same height, except for when they got close to the base, and that's when they would spread out a little bit, and hover and linger for a little while.
And what if you were to guess one orb, or well, let's just say any of the orbs that you observed hovering over Langley Air Force Base, if could you possibly provide an estimate as to what the longest amount of time was that a orb or a number of them were loitering, hovering above the base?
That would be kind of difficult to say. I was just so kind of overwhelmed with everything that was going on. I was kind of, looking around at the whole scene as it was going on, and I never really followed one of them through its entire path. But it wasn't long. I mean, as I said earlier, I feel I saw about 40 of them total. So they would come in and slow down, some stop over, and then they would just get back on and go back over the river, heading back towards Virginia Beach.
Did you ever hear any kind of sound emanating from the base? In other words, like any kind of kinetic thing, like a mortar fire or something that would sound like they were doing something to try and shoot them out of the sky?
No, it was very quiet that night. I did not hear any loud noises like that. Or yes.
Okay. Okay, so going back to the map here, so we've got the flight path of the orbs. Now, you were saying, and again, we'll show the videos here in a second and some of the photos that you took. You were noting, if I recall correctly from Ross Coulthart's interview with you on News Nation, that the configuration of the drones, or what they're referring to as drones or unmanned aerial systems, that the lighting configurations, flash rates, and colors were different. Am I correct in that?
Yes. They would all have that reddish orange blink or pulse that they would use, and then it would go directly into a whitish color. But yes, they were definitely, it seemed like the patterns were different, especially as they got over the base. One of my videos I have, there's two of them, and one is moving at a faster speed than the other. One is blinking at more of like a heartbeat pace, while the other one is moving and blinking much faster. But again, it's not like a steady, consistent flash like you see like on planes and helicopters and things like that. It was like, again, the whole craft would be that orangish red color, and then fade into the white, and then but sometimes beat 3 times in a row, and then sometimes different. So it was extremely varied.
Were you able to detect any sort of physical structure? For instance, the light emanating from the object, did it appear to illuminate any kind of fuselage or airframe or wings or any of that?
Yeah, definitely not. In my view of the orbs that I saw, they looked to be completely circular. I did not notice any structures as wings or rotors or anything of that nature.
When you were noticing different colors, let's say like this is the orb, would you notice that just at this corner would be a red light and then this corner would be a white, or was it the entirety of the orb would change color?
As far as the orbs, the entire craft would change color. It'd either be all the reddish orange or white.
Okay. And and I know I'm getting into the weeds here a bit, but I think these are important questions to ask. If you were looking at the orb across its entire diameter, was the level of illumination consistent throughout the entire diameter, or was it brighter at the center and then would fall off towards the edges? Was that something you were able to note?
I did not notice any type of gradients or anything like that. It, it was they were kind of, it's like a fuzzy light. I mean, you could definitely notice the color, and it seemed to be the entire vehicle as it went from one color to another. But as far as any other little details, unfortunately, like I said, it was kind of a very fuzzy light.
Now, let's get into something that I think is really significant here, and that is what is noticed on here, or noted here, as the saucer flight path. What is this saucer, and what can you tell us about it? What did you observe? How long was it in view, etc.?
Okay. Yes, a few minutes into the event, I noticed what seemed to be like a larger craft, which began at the same elevation as the orbs, but it would break off and it would head down very close to the river. I would say maybe a couple 100 feet it would get down to, and this was much larger. It seemed to be about the size as a Black Hawk, maybe about 30 or 40 feet wide. They still held the orangish red color, but it was a different shape. It seemed to be more of like an ellipse or a lens shape at the bottom of the vehicle, which was completely the orange color. And then above that, I would see three white bright lights. Almost kind of looked like windows that were in the middle of the vehicle, and then on the leading edge of the vehicle, on the edge that it was moving in the direction in, it had a very white blinking light that would blink extremely quickly as it flew. And that vehicle came down, or craft came down, and it was much closer. It was probably about 3 to 4 miles away from me, but it was much closer to the river, and it flew or hovered right past Fort Eustis. And as it got to the Fort Eustis, it would elevate, go over the area where there's Surrey nuclear power plant, and then loop around behind me. I saw that vehicle 3 times, so I'm not sure if it was the same vehicle or 3 different vehicles. I never saw more than one at one time. I have the feeling, though, I think it circled around and then came back and did the same run as what I saw.
And this, I take it, emanated no noise as well?
Yes, it was completely silent. As it went by, I was listening, but definitely there was no sound or any kind of propulsion system or anything like that. It seemed to be hovering right past me.
And did this, you described the shape. When you looked at it, did it appear to be sort of a non-corporeal entity like the orb, or do you get the impression that it represented a nuts and bolts vehicle?
I mean, I feel it was a different type, definitely a different shape. I believe it was some kind of craft or vehicle, but it's like nothing I've seen. The whole bottom was glowing that same orange color, and then what it appeared to have 3 windows or lights in the middle. It was like nothing I've ever seen hovering or flying near any of these bases or anything.
You mentioned in the interview with Ross Coulthart on News Nation that you felt that this may have been some kind of mothership. What gave you that impression?
It seemed to be like almost observing the entire event as it would. Yeah, it felt like almost like a command control. Now that's just an opinion on my part, but it definitely did seem to be very different than the orbs that were just circling up much higher and going directly over the base. This one, it did seem everything it did seemed to be more of a watching and kind of being the lead of the event is the impression that I got.
Did you notice, did any of the orbs approach the saucer?
No. The orbs would stay on their same flight path pretty consistently. The larger vehicle craft would break away from that path and then come down and fly right over the river, but still in sight of where all the orbs were back at Langley.
Did you observe? I asked earlier about the quality of the light. So a good while back, I had an orb appear above our home. It's happened a total of 10 times. The last of which was October 30th of last year, and the orb that has appeared above my home. That my wife has been there to witness. A family friend was here to witness. It's kind of appeared in two modes. One is high up in the sky, maybe around 10,000 feet, and it literally looks like a flash bulb, a super bright flash bulb going on and off. I've caught that on video, and then it would reposition, flash on and off. It's very, very brief, and it was about the color of a star. The same kind of whitish blue. The other orb, and I would say probably maybe 25% of the ones that have shown up above my home have only been a couple hundred feet above my home. And in the past, I've described them as being the same size of a car. I used a Mini Cooper as an example. And the first time that I saw this, my wife and I were outside, and we were in the hot tub. I'm looking one way, I'm looking the other, and we're up in the Hollywood Hills, and we see tons of air traffic, satellites. We've even had drones come over and whatnot. And my wife looks at me, and she goes, "What the F is that?" And I turn around, and the first thing I see is this orb, but it was about the color of, say, like an incandescent helicopter landing light, around like 2,800, 3,000 Kelvin. And we get a lot of police helicopters, being in LA, obviously, so I've seen tons of them. But the thing that I immediately noticed about, a second after observing it was the quality of the light was similar to almost like looking at a welding arc, but it didn't hurt your eyes. So that was my first clue was, and I work in television as a director of photography, so I'm used to what camera's seeing, and I can look at a lighting source and tell you whether it's an arc source or LED or incandescent or whatever. And when I saw what I saw for the very first time, I immediately knew the quality of it was unlike anything I had ever seen in my life. Was this anything like that, especially since it sounds like you may be describing something somewhat similar? Did the quality of the light look any different than, say, like what you might see on a regular aircraft, or was this unique in any way?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I agree with you. I think it did have a very different kind of light to it. As I said, the orbs that's all they were was light, but it was I don't know if sharp's the right word, but it was a powerful light. You could definitely see it, and when it would go to the white phase, it was a very bright white that it would turn to. And yes, as far as the other craft that came down and hovered closer to me, that glow of the bottom was a very powerful glow, where that almost overwhelmed to where I couldn't see much of what the structure of it was, even though I know, I didn't see any things like wings or rotors sticking out from the light. It was just that semi kind of circular, elliptical or lens shaped light at the bottom.
Was it difficult to look at? Was it something you had to shield your eyes? It strained your eyes looking at it in the dark?
No, it didn't. It wasn't like painful, like you said, a welder's arc or anything like that. But it was I guess, intense. Is what I would say.
Understood. Okay, so I asked yesterday that you provide a drawing of what the saucer looked like, and we're gonna bring this up. And I know you had mentioned you were a little bit hesitant because of your artistic abilities. Mine are not very good, but I think that this is really useful in that it gets the idea across. So walk us through again exactly what we're looking at in your illustration.
Yes. So again, it's not the best representation, but to me the main thing to take away from that is the colors, and that orange shape was what I saw, but yes, a very intense light that was emitting from the lower half of it, and then in the top, I made sure I put my phone down and looked at it very closely. I was, looked straight at with my eyes because I wanted to take it in. And unfortunately, the film you try to take on phones, it does not do it justice because of the brightness of the light. It kind of does make it look fuzzier and more difficult to see the details. But I definitely saw the curved orange bottom, very bright light, and then I definitely saw the three white rectangles that almost looked like they were inside of a structure of some sort. They were like, maybe like a window or something like that. But that was definitely my takeaway from it.
So the white triangles, would you say that it felt like the light was emanating inside of something as opposed to the white rectangles being a light source attached to the outside?
Yes, definitely. As well said, it did seem to be coming from almost the interior of the craft instead of, it wasn't just lights planted on the edge or anything like that. It seemed to be coming from the interior.
Got it. Okay. Now, I usually do audience questions at the end, but there were a couple here relevant to what you were just speaking about that I would like to bring up. Dove asks, how did Jonathan feel upon observing them? Were you frightened at all? Did you feel any sort of panic, or what was going through your head?
No, I did not have any form of fear or anything like that. I was just immensely curious to what was happening, and I knew I wanted to try to capture it, and try to figure out what they were and what was going on. But yes, I was never felt scared or anything like that. Just extremely interested in the entire event.
And I take it you've never seen anything like this in your life prior to this?
Yeah, absolutely not. No, I've not seen anything like this before.
Got it. Okay. Dove was asking, was the pulsing or blinking a slow fade or a quick lights out? In other words, like for instance, what is shown up low to my home, the only way that I can describe it is it fades in and out exactly like a firefly in terms of the ramp rate up, the level of time it's at its full intensity, and then the ramp rate down, and then the time in between when it's no longer there and it's there. So how would you describe the blinking of it?
I think your description was a very good way to do that. It was definitely not like a strobe light, whereas it was like a flash and then off, it would go from orange to white. And then yes, as you say that, there could have been kind of a ramp up, ramp down, and then white. It'd be white and then orange. But yeah, it definitely did not seem like someone switching a switch or anything. It was go directly from one to the other.
The orange that you describe, if it's you can say orange and it can mean many different things to many different people. Can you compare that color to an everyday object that we might know?
So, good question. I mean, reddish orange is what I have been saying. I can't even think of an example, because it definitely wasn't like a pure red that you typically see in like FAA type lights. It did have that very orangish tint to it. But yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I've ever seen that's looked like that color before.
And you noted that each individual orb would exhibit different colors. It wasn't like there was just a red orb the whole time, and then the next one was gold, and the next one was white. They all changed to different colors, correct?
Well, from what I saw, it did seem to kind of go from the orangish red to the white. Those would seem to be the two predominant colors that they would switch from.
Okay, but they would switch. In other words, it wasn't like they were a consistent color of light throughout the entire flight path.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, it's definitely, it'd be like orange for a second, and then white for a couple of beats, and then it like kind of go back to orange, and then back to the white. Yes.
Now, I believe you mentioned to Ross as well that what you observed to your eye was different than what showed up on camera. Tell us about that.
Yes. Unfortunately, it's a large complaint when a lot of people try to see, UAP videos, especially at night, is they're fuzzy. And I can see why that happens. It makes me wonder if it's anti-gravity or like an anti-gravitational bubble or field that's around that helps it hover like that, then maybe that is what kind of causes that blurring of films and pictures when you try to take them. But it was definitely a different experience from what I saw with my eyes and what the pictures that came out. When you added fuzziness. Yeah.
When you were, did you notice this difference while you were filming, or was it afterwards that you're like, what's on my iPhone doesn't look anything like how it appeared to my eye?
It was mostly afterwards. It was some in the middle of it, even though I wasn't really going back and looking through my pictures during the event. But I was, some of the videos I took, I was really trying to focus in and really trying to work with the color to sharpen it up, but you just could not get it to sharpen at all, on at least on my phone.
Got it. Okay, so let's play the first clip, and while we're playing it here, you'll be able to comment. So let's see here. This should be the number 2. Here we go. And feel free to comment as far as what we're looking at.
Oh, well, I'm unable to see it.
Okay. So let's see. Actually, if you want, maybe the best thing to do is, so the videos that I downloaded were numbered. So this would have been the very first one. So you're saying you cannot see it at your end?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. So let's see here. I'll try restarting it again. Yeah, so essentially it looks like there's one at a distance and you're zooming in and out. Let me see if I can figure out which particular one this is that you were observing. These videos, by the way, are on Christopher Sharp at the Liberation Times just opened a YouTube channel. These videos are on there. So this says video 1, Langley Air Force Base, UAS, December 2023, video 1. Is that something you can look at, or just to give us some context?
I'm trying to find the email I had with I did I believe sent that to Chris, where I kind of described each of the videos, but unfortunately I'm unable to find that.
Got it. Okay. All right. Then we'll go through the other videos here. So anyway, so that's the first one, and then the second one. Look, I'm sorry, not that one. There we go. This is yet another one. You're looking up in the sky. It's kind of pulsing red to white. This is labeled as video number 2, and it looks like was a white light just above it. I'm not sure if that was a star or what that is. Let me see. I'm going to look up here Times and see if I can find the Liberation Times website. I'm going to replay this. So you cannot, so you have no way of looking at this. Okay, so anyway, yeah, but you can clearly see it appears to be pulsing red to white, and it looks like you were just zoomed in on one of them.
If it's kind of a lower altitude and very bright and large, those would be of the saucer type craft that I saw as they hovered in front of me. Any of the videos where they are at a higher altitude and you see more than one at a time, those were the orbs that I was seeing, typically as they hovered right over the base. I've looked up the Liberation Times website, so I think I should be able to describe them now to you. Would you like me to do video 1?
Yeah, actually, let me just make sure, because I'm trying to find, is it at Liberation Times? Here we go. Okay, so anybody that wants to follow along here, it's probably be easier. If you go, folks watching, if you go to youtube.com / and then type in at Liberation Times. That's his YouTube channel there. So yeah, so and Chris has posted the 4 of these videos, so it may be a little bit easier to see there. So yeah, so again, I'll play the one labeled as 1. It says Langley on Chris's website, and I see he's already getting tons of views. Grateful for that. Langley Air Force Base, UAS, December 2023, video 1. So why don't you play that at your end, and let me know when you're playing it, and then I'll play it here so you can do your best to kind of comment on live at what we're looking at. How does that sound?
Okay. So as far as
one of the things we have to continue.
Sorry, here we go. Go on ahead. So I'm playing it here at my end.
Well, I'm looking at the article site.
Okay, so you're not on the YouTube site.
No, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, so just go to youtube.com / and then the @ sign and Liberation Times, and let me know when you're there.
Okay.
I think it may be because on Zoom we don't have the video running, so this was audio only, and that's probably why you're not able to see what I'm displaying.
Yes. So, okay, I do see video 2.
Okay, yeah. So look at let's
one,
look, yeah. So play video 1, and when you're ready, play that, and then give us some commentary.
Fortunately, as I'm scrolling through, I see 3 and 2, but I am not seeing video 1.
Okay, then let's. Okay, understood. So bring up. Tell me what video you're looking at, and I'll play it at my end.
Okay, video 2.
Okay, here we go. So here is video 2. All right, going ahead.
Yes, this is what I believe was the larger of the crafts that was coming in at kind of a lower altitude, and as you can see, it would go from that sometimes orange, and then sometimes it would go to white. It was very, very random in the way they would do that.
Okay, I'm going to play. I'm just going to play it again here. And this definitely, from what you were observing, was nothing. Was nothing like you had seen before.
Yes, definitely. It's as I said, the whole vehicles were that color, and the flashing it's just unlike anything I've ever seen. From it going from completely orange at times to the white color, and back again.
Got it. Okay, let's. What is the next one you'd like to show? Just tell me the video number.
I have 3.
Okay, so we'll play 3. Okay, watching it now. This one looks like it's a little bit brighter in the sky there.
Yeah, so these are definitely the orbs from the distance. As I've kind of focus out or pan back a little bit, you can kind of see how many there are hovering up there. There's 2, 3, 4 that you can see. They're all blinking at different different rates, different pulses, and they would kind of also be slight differences in their altitude over the base.
Got it. Okay, and these look like they were fairly high up.
Yes, those were the orbs that went over the base, and yeah, I would say that's kind of was what I would say the height of like a Cessna or a smaller craft you would see, but again, they definitely were not anything like that because they're going and hovering directly over the base.
Okay, got it. Let's see here. What is the next one you would like to show?
Well, I'm not completely sure if I'm the right area, but I only see 3 and 2 is the only ones that.
Okay, no problem. All right, let me play what appears to be another one. Let's see, this one's a little bit harder. So this again looks like the orbs that are an orb that's up high, and you're zooming in on it. Yeah, it's interesting. It appears like there are 2 adjacent to each other that are flashing on and off.
Yes, that was a very interesting one. That was right like during the peak of the event, and those 2 kind of came in together, and they began very close to one another. But as I film it, the one of them pulls away from the other, and what it appeared like to me was they both pulsed at different rates, and those rates changed as they moved across. But yeah, that was at a point where I focused on those 2, but there would be up to 5 and sometimes more over the base during those periods.
Okay. Yeah, and it's and at the bottom of the photo, which looks like it's at the other end of the river, that the lights that we're seeing on the shore, that is where Langley Air Force Base would be.
Yes, yeah, that's the lights that you do see is Newport News in that area, but where the orbs are is they're a little further back, and that's where the base is.
Okay. And during this event, you saw no military traffic or anything that looked like it was chasing them or pursuing them or trying to investigate what these things were?
No, I did not notice any military craft at all during the event. And, that is something that would stand out. If these were man-controlled drones, there was no way that they would be able to hover over a military base as important as Langley without something happening.
Of course.
I think as well as if there was a foreign adversary, you would think that it would cause some form of reaction from the base.
Yeah, you certainly will. And here in a second, we'll show the photos. Folks, if you're enjoying this show, please hit the subscribe and thumbs up button. All that stuff really helps YouTube promote our content organically. And actually, interestingly enough, we have been putting the hashtag #UFO and #UAP on all of our content, all of our videos, both live and the stuff that we pre-record. And one of you at home noticed that when you click on the hashtag on our videos, it takes you to a YouTube page that says there's nothing to see here. And so I thought for sure YouTube was perhaps kind of, I don't know, constraining our content. Our following has actually been very slow to grow, and we haven't been able to figure that out. So I reached out to YouTube, and they said that they purposely do not have a landing place for the hashtag UFO or UAP or UAPs, which is just, I don't know. that's pretty nuts. Anyway, we would appreciate you telling your friends about our show because we are very slow to grow, and of course the best way for us to get this important information out is more eyeballs. So we would appreciate that. Okay, so let's look at the photos here. Now I know you won't be able to see them, but this is the first one. This was a still that you took. And I know, again, you can't see what is on what I'm looking or what the audience is looking at here, but it looks like kind of a slightly rectangular or ovalish object at the top of the frame. And I don't know if that was from motion blur or what that might be. I'm going to look here in my email because you sent these via email. And
yes, I have that email I sent you up. If it's the first one, it does show. I believe this is a picture I took of the larger craft as it was lowering down and flying much closer to the river.
Okay.
The white, it's a white light towards the top of the picture.
I see. And okay, so the larger one, that is what you saw as a saucer-shaped object, correct?
Yes.
And then
if you can
go ahead.
There's a couple lights in the background. I can't say for certain if those were some of the stars that were out that night, but the orbs that could be where they were moving towards the base or away after they went over.
So one thing that I just noticed in this photo is the orbs. Because at first when I saw this photo, I thought, well, maybe the large object in the middle was a function of camera movement or the object moving and it creating a trail of light from a longer exposure. But the thing that is unique about this is the orbs do not exhibit that. or what could be stars, the ones in further distance. So what that says to me is that the camera was not moving, and or you were able to track the orb, but the large object in your photo here, I don't see how it could be any kind of motion blur, because nothing else seems to be blurred, but this object is clearly significantly larger than the other ones.
Yes. I do believe that is the larger craft as it came down, and it was much closer to me. But you could also just tell that it was larger than any of the other orbs that were going over the base.
Okay. All right. We're going to bring up the next one, which is the second one in the series that you sent.
Yes.
Describe what we're looking at here.
This looks like one of the orbs, as I believe, is probably returning back in the direction they came from. I did, at this point, I believe I had put in about a 2 to 3 second exposure, because, without that, the orbs were hard to pick out, because they were, they'd kind of be stationary, it'd be a light. But this one looks like, as it was in the orangish color, with like a second of exposure or so, kind of made a little bit of a streak. But you can even see, behind it, that it was moving in that direction.
I see. And is the color of the streak, this orange, is this pretty accurate to what you saw, or again, what showed up on camera is a little bit different than what showed up, what you saw with your own eyes?
It might not really be picking up the complete brightness, I guess.
Okay.
This could have been in between when it was going from orange to white, or something like that. But
okay,
you can't see color.
Understood. Okay, we'll go to the next one. So this one appears to be a much more saturated reddish color.
Yes. Yeah. This is again my attempts at trying to find the best way to get the best picture possible. But yes, that was as it was blinking to the orangish red color. Maybe a little bit of motion to it.
But I would say that this does not look like any red I've seen on any kind of aircraft navigation light. It seems very pure.
Yes, yeah. The colors I saw, I've never seen on any kind of airplane or helicopter or anything like that before. Okay,
we're going to move to the next one. So this looks like the exposure was a little bit brighter. The sky appears a little bit brighter, and it looks like there are two streaks that are going in opposite directions.
Yes. So this one, I believe, shows one of the orbs heading towards the base, and then one of them is heading back in the direction it came. There was a point over the river where you could really see that, as I mentioned before, like a conveyor belt. There would be the line that they would come in on, they would circle, go over, and then they would just go right back out. They really stuck to about the same flight path as they went around and through.
Now, I noticed here, because I'm looking at what I'm putting up on air, and then the photo that you sent, and it appears when I put this photo in to display the graphic on air, I accidentally chopped the bottom one, the bottom part off. Unfortunately, I don't have a way of showing it. But folks at home, if you're looking at the object at the top, just right below what would be the bottom of this photo, you would see an almost identical object traveling the other way. Now, when I'm looking at this, it almost appears as if it was leaving some kind of contrail.
I guess as you can kind of see something like that from there. Uh, I'm not sure if that's part of the motion. And as I said, at this point, I had kind of tried to have the exposure a little longer, like 2 or 3 seconds, to try to kind
Right.
of get more of the motion of it, where it would stick out from the stars and everything.
Okay, got it. All right, and then we're going to show another one here, if we can find the right button. Okay, so this one's a little bit further away. It's looks like what I don't know if you've got that one in front of you. It looks like we see the bottom of the
Yeah,
of the
that would
land there.
be Newport News. Yeah, and yes, you can see right in the middle of this one that I did get one as it was kind of going into that orangish red color. It is a very dark red that it appears like in the picture, but as you can see, it's completely still and hovering.
And what I'll do is I'll post these on our Twitter feed. Again, on Twitter we're at Good Trouble Show. Didn't have enough characters to put the "the" in there. Okay, great. So let's see here. The next thing I want to show is, see, you took one of these videos of what you describe as the saucer, and you zoomed that in. So I want to play that next. I mean, that thing is definitely pretty good size.
Yes, yeah, I would say around 30 to 40 feet. Again, that was the one that I could. They were much. It was much closer towards me. Made no sound, but it did have that bright orange bottom. Most of it had that orangish color, but then there was the three white lights on the top,
Mm-hmm.
and then as well it had the bright blinking light that was on the leading edge of it as it moved past Fort Eustis.
And I'm hearing the sound of the waves of the water at the beach
Yes.
at your home. And again, there's no sound whatsoever with the object.
Right. If that was a helicopter, you would hear definitely as quiet as it was that night. You would be hearing a chop of blades, or, I can't imagine a plane flying at that speed, and it's more of a hover, in my opinion. But yes, there's no sound of any kind of propulsion.
And the thing I would also note as well, just the size of this thing. Let's say that it were a helicopter. It would definitely, because it looks like it's really not that far from you, I would think you would, if it were a helicopter or a jet, you would certainly hear it.
Yes.
I mean, this doesn't look like a 1 foot diameter drone. It looks huge.
Yes. Yeah. In my experience, I've seen plenty of helicopters go over the river from me at that exact same distance, and you definitely hear them. You would not just be hearing the waves of the river.
Well, looking at all of these are clearly not drones. These are not prosaic drones. What, after having had some time to really think about this and look at the footage and the various photos, what do you think these things are?
Well, I cannot say for certain, but I know I can say I've never seen anything like that from all my years of sitting out at night and during the day. And the maneuvers they were making were extremely strange, the way they would, hover and linger over the base. And then you can refer back to the Warzone article that came out, which was really the point where I went from not being sure what I had with these pictures and videos to being like, wow, I really saw something special. But for the base to come out and basically say that they weren't sure what they were and they didn't know how to respond. The commander of NORAD said that before Congress, in the middle of March as well. So it definitely tends to lean toward it being, something anomalous that even most of the people at that base are not sure what it is.
Do you know if there were any other witnesses that have you met anybody or communicated with anyone that was a witness to this that may have filmed it as well?
I have not been heard from anyone that has said that they filmed any of the other events.
Okay. And I understand that you reached out to the FBI, or did they reach out to you?
Yes. So once that Warzone article came out, really the first thing I did, I saw Ryan Graves, who testified before Congress last summer. He's an ex-Navy pilot who is over Americans for Safe Aerospace. He had a tweet about that, and that's who I first sent my first videos and pictures to. And he put me in touch. He thought I should go ahead and try to give my testimony or report on what I saw to a agent he knows in the FBI. So he put me in touch, and I did speak to a few agents back in the middle of March.
Did they come to your home, or was this a telephone interview?
It was a teleconference with them.
And what, if you can say, what sort of questions did they ask, or did they just ask you to recount the story and that was sort of the end of it?
Yeah, it was basically just a recount of everything I saw. Some details on locations and things like that. And they did seem to have an interest in what had happened, but I've not heard back from anyone else representing the agency since then.
Okay. And have you been contacted by anyone else, say from the base or Air Force Office of Special Investigations?
No, not at this time. I have not spoken with any other military or government officials.
And have you received any kind of harassment in any sort of form from anybody, or email or anything of that nature?
No, absolutely not. I've been just when I've been asked, I've tried to report exactly what I saw, and that's where it stood so far.
Understood. So let me see. I'm just going through the rest of my questions. So on subsequent nights, did you go out looking for this?
Yes. I mean, after that, and particularly after March, when I found out, how special that event was, I have gone out and looked, but I've definitely not seen anything else close to or anything like what I saw that night.
Understood. And I noted earlier that former Assistant Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence Christopher Mellon noted that the entire F-22 wing stationed at Langley had to be relocated. And of course, this was back in December. So I'm curious, have you noticed F-22s operating out of Langley since then?
No, I actually I have not. Do not think I have noticed any since then. I've not been here quite as much, but still, no, I have not noticed that.
Understood. Okay. Well, this story was just absolutely amazing, and just want to go through here. I think we have some questions, a couple questions from the audience. Firstly, Di David, thank you so much for the super chat donation. There were two of them there. Both from Thor. Thank you very much for helping financially support our show. Of course, we had Dove's questions about the blinking. Aaron Dunn asks, and she says, and it's the objects in these videos that the military indicates they couldn't identify. So when you were looking at it, would it let's say that these were some kind of man-made drone, do you think it would have been obvious what they were? Or what you saw was just so out of your world experience that there'd be no way of saying what these things were that you witnessed?
I mean, I know that I could not place or, I have never seen anything like them before. I've had plenty of experience seeing what your average military or commercial plane or helicopter looks like, and none of these were that. This was definitely a level of, I think, technology that is superior to what we're used to seeing, or anything that we see in everyday life.
Agreed. Yeah, I would say that's a pretty accurate assessment. Aaron Dunn also asked, was there any response to these objects from the military? Did they give chase? Did the objects seem to react to any sort of external stimuli?
No, they definitely were not aggressive or anything like that. It was a slow, steady pace they kept through their entire route, except until they were over the base. And outside of the searchlights that came up a few times, I saw nothing as far as a response from the base with any types of vehicles or anything like that.
Was there any mention of this in the local news?
No, and I definitely looked the next day. I was trying to search on X or Twitter, or look through the local newspapers, and I was, unfortunately, I saw nothing.
Okay.
Until March.
Of course. Aaron also asks, these were completely silent from your perspective.
Yes, I was not able to take any or hear any noises that came from any of the craft during the entire event.
Okay. Gandalf LeBlanc asks, question please, Matt, what sort of camera did he use to take these excellent footage with the stars behind that were so clear?
I believe, an iPhone 13. I wish I was a little more talented with at night as far as taking pictures. I wish I would have had a more advanced camera or something like that. But
I thought you did an excellent job. Were you manually adjusting? I know, like on the iPhone, you can push on the screen and it will allow you to adjust the exposure up one way or the other. Did you have to do that when you photographed these things?
Yes, I did. That's definitely what I was doing. I was trying to zoom in with, doing spreading your fingers apart, and then I was also trying to tap right on the whichever craft I was trying to focus in on to see if it would get the brightness kind of to sharpen up the vehicles I was seeing, and then when I do the kind of the night longer exposures that you can do, I was trying to mix that in a little bit too, to maybe do a 2 or 3 second exposure, hoping that would kind of pull in more light and possibly more detail from what I was seeing.
Got it. Let's see. Katkin says, Matt, not a question, but can you thank your guest for being so brave and bringing out this footage? Yeah, Jonathan, I mean, I have to say, my hat is off to you for speaking up about this. I think it's one thing when you have an article, the War Zone did an excellent article bringing this up, and then subsequent details that emerged, but nothing compares to photographs and video, even if the photographs and video don't do what your eye saw in terms of doing it justice. So you really got the impression that how it photographed in some way is interfered with versus what your human eye is able to perceive.
I mean, yeah, that's what I kind of have to say. And I know it is possibly a little difficult to take pictures of things at night with an iPhone, but it really was like, I would look at these, especially the larger craft, the saucer that was closer to me. I would stop sometimes and just look at it and then try to capture it, and I could not. And it does make me kind of wonder if whatever technology it's using is kind of maybe causes a blur for trying to record it.
Understood. Yeah, that's. I think that's a pretty common thing to hear from people that have recorded these events. Well, Jonathan, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Appreciate you sharing your story and, of course, your photos, videos, and thank you again for making your own artist representation of the saucer that flew around. It's it's really amazing. And I'm curious too, how often are you staying at your beach house? Are you able to look out there pretty much any night and see if there's anything?
No, it's typically maybe only a couple times a month I'll come out.
Okay.
And see. But I'm here this weekend, and I'll definitely be looking tonight. Even though, unfortunately, it was very cloudy last night. I'm hoping the clouds kind of stay a little broken up tonight. And I would like also to thank you for everything. I think anyone that helps push disclosure and get the word out of the things that are being seen and trying to push for the truth it's a very important thing to do.
Yes, I definitely agree. And, I have no idea what has showed up above my home multiple times. I couldn't tell you where it's from or why it showed up or, I think at the end of the day, all of us are looking for answers. And certainly people like yourself coming forward with what you have seen, that's just another piece of this pretty large puzzle. So thank you. Thank you for joining us. And and if something happens again, I certainly hope you'll come back on the show and share any new developments.
I definitely will. Thank you. Thank you
Awesome.
for having me.
Okay, great. Jonathan Butner, ladies and gentlemen. All right, great. Well, thank you very much. Okay, great. Well, let's see. I thought that was very interesting for sure. It is clear that, in my opinion, especially once and I want to go over Chris's article here in a second on the Liberation Times, and I hope everyone will have a look as well. But to me, it seems as if you're the U.S. Air Force and the Pentagon, and you have a major event like this over a major defense installation that is adjacent to our national leadership, the president and the Capitol and the Pentagon. If you're the Pentagon and you're the Air Force, and you are not wanting to panic people, and let's just say that you are you're the Pentagon and you're the Air Force, and you're fairly certain that due to the number of these things flying over a major defense installation, if I'm Sue Go, Pentagon at the Pentagon Public Affairs Office, or what I like to call the Pentagon Propaganda Affairs Office, that there's a good chance that other people have seen it. Maybe people have filmed it, as Jonathan did. So if you are trying to lie to Congress and the American people and throw them off of a path, you're going to label these things as UASs, as unmanned aerial systems. Now, we know we have AARO, which is supposed to be investigating unidentified anomalous phenomenon, which, of course, most people, I think, are coming to realize that UAP is the new acronym for UFOs. The last thing that you, as the Pentagon or Sue Go, is going to do, Goff, or however you say your name, you're not going to label these as UAP. Think about it this way. The Air Force says 40-ish UAPs were operating unimpeded over restricted airspace over one of the United States' most important air defense installations, that when NORAD detects something entering that is not known, entering the U.S.'s air defense identification zone or entering restricted airspace over Washington, D.C., that the missions to intercept those craft or whatever they might be, that those would generate out of Langley. So if the Pentagon or the Air Force were to have labeled these as UAP, in my opinion, that would have generated 100 times more press interest. We certainly know that outlets like the New York Times and the Washington Post that are essentially just mouthpieces of the Pentagon, those folks are not practicing real journalism, that it would generate too much visibility. I think it would also generate a certain amount of public panic, because the headline would be unidentified aerial phenomenon operated with impunity over Langley Air Force Base, versus the Pentagon saying, in essence, that drones of unknown origin operated above an Air Force facility. It is yet another chapter of the CIA, the intelligence community, and the Pentagon lying to you, the American public, and lying to our lawmakers. I played earlier the clip where I think it was the chief of Joint Chiefs of Staff, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, telling members of Congress that. Giving him, basically just saying, yeah, this is something we need to look into, and we need to figure out what this technology is, and blah, 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 blah. They are purposely lying to Congress so that Congress will stop looking into this. When you have debunkers like Mick West or Steven Greenstreet, or the other professional debunkers, the debunkers that, in my opinion, are doing this for some money, we'll just put it that way. They are doing that as part of an disinformation campaign to discourage Congress from continuing to ask questions. They are doing this on behest of the CIA, of the intelligence community, of the Pentagon. They are putting out this spin, this disinformation, so that Congress stops asking questions. They do not. The Pentagon and the CIA are in a difficult spot because members of Congress, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Senator Marco Rubio, the House ranking Senator, Democrat Chuck Schumer, Republican Mike Rounds, Congressman Tim Burchett, Congressman Matt Gaetz. The list goes on and on of people in Congress that know damn well that the Pentagon and the CIA is lying directly to their face. And they're probably laughing inside when they're doing it, when they're sitting in front of Congress giving testimony. These folks, be it the professional debunkers such as Mick West, who we actually had to mute out of the chat because he was being a distraction, or Steven Greenstreet, who pushes out propaganda for the Pentagon's talking points, or the various journalists at the New York Times. None of these folks are interested in the truth. None of these folks want to know what's going on. They are interested in derailing Congress. Their goal is to get the public so amped up and put it in their head that this is a waste of taxpayer dollars, such that the American voter will call up their representative and say, why are you looking into this UAP stuff? That is the goal of the debunkers. That is the goal of the Pentagon. That is the goal of the Pentagon Public Affairs Office. We know that Sue Go, when AARO released its historical report, made backroom deals with people in the press to give them early access to Tim Phillips, the new director of AARO. Now, keep in mind that historical report, I'm 99.9% sure, was generated by the former director, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, who is now sitting in his cush gig as a reward for playing ball with the CIA. He now has his cush gig at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. These folks want all of us to shut up. These folks want us to stop asking questions. They want this to go away. Last week, I think it was last week, we had whistleblower attorney Mark Zaid, who was rated by Forbes as one of the top 200 attorneys in the United States, who represents multiple clients from CIA, Secret Service, FBI, people all across the national security establishment that have been victims of Havana syndrome. There was just recently a hearing about Havana syndrome in Congress, in I think the counter-terrorism subcommittee. He spoke about how the CIA, and he has the classified data to prove that the CIA is hiding and lying about anomalous health injuries, or otherwise what is known as Havana syndrome. He has the receipts, and he is providing those receipts to Congress in a classified setting because the data that he holds is classified. And what he noted in the interview, and I encourage all of you to go back, look in the live section of our YouTube page, and you'll see the interview with Mark Zaid. The things that you hear him speak about, and he spoke about this on 60 Minutes last month, the things that you hear him talk about as to why the CIA and the Pentagon is lying to Congress, is lying to you, the American people, about Havana syndrome cases. It is almost the exact line of reasoning as to why they are lying to you and members of Congress and their staffers about the reality of UAPs, or unidentified anomalous phenomenon, and the fact that this phenomenon, by and large, is not from here. They are not, the things that we are discussing here today are not Russian drones. They're not Chinese drones. These are things that have been operating in American restricted airspace since World War II, if not earlier, way before any drones, way before China or Russia had jet engines, or even for that matter, we had jet aircraft. The Pentagon and the CIA, they do not want you pursuing this. So when you have people like Mick West in the chat trolling, he is wanting you to pay attention to what he is saying, that it is all prosaic, and not listen to the rest of the data. The debunkers are not interested in the truth. They are interested in promoting a worldview, and they are interested in promoting what the Pentagon and the CIA want them to promote. Pure and simple. The debunker's job is to debunk. The CIA's job is to lie to you. The CIA's job is to lie to Congress so that they don't look into things that the CIA does not want them looking into, regardless of whether it has something to do with our national security. And by God, this certainly does. If these sorts of things operating in our airspace over a airbase that NORAD generates fighter interceptors out of, if that is not a national security threat, I don't know what is. And it is absolutely appalling when you have the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff going in front of Congress, essentially saying, it's probably no big deal, and that we're not really sure where this stuff is at. So me, as a American that pays his fair share of taxes, and we hear that Undersecretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks, who is second in charge of the Pentagon, that she cannot account for literally 50% of the money and the assets operating in the Pentagon? She doesn't know where half of the money that you and I and Congress sending our money to the Pentagon, and they can't tell you where that money is going? They can't tell you about what black projects money is being spent on? It is un-American, it is maddening, and as many of us have been messaging to Congress privately and in a public forum such as this is a congressional oversight issue. When you have the Pentagon and the intelligence community operating like we are living under a military junta, that is not what our founding fathers intended. That is not what the Constitution of the United States lays out. Congress cannot do its job. The president cannot do his or her job when the Pentagon and the CIA is lying to them, which is what has been going on. They have a history of it. We know in 1973 that investigative reporter Carl Bernstein, who along with Bob Woodward broke the Watergate story, he discovered that the CIA had been paying over 400 American journalists, editors, and news outlets to spout CIA propaganda. These people were either paid directly or it was a quid pro quo. But essentially, the CIA was paying journalists at the New York Post, journalists at CBS News during the Cold War period, during the 50s, during the 60s, up until 1970s. All of this came out in the Senate hearing that was the Church Committee. And that's where we discovered that the CIA and the Pentagon have been running rogue for decades, doing what they thought was right. And what they think is right is lying to Congress. They were hiding the fact that they had bought off all of these American journalists. This, of course, was at the height of the Cold War, and they were there to spread anti-Russian propaganda. Anything that they thought was right, that was the mechanism the CIA was using to put that in front of the American public, put that in front of lawmakers, put that in front of lawmakers' staffers. So when you back up and you look today, when you back up to a 50,000-foot field of view, it is brutally obvious that nothing has changed. It is brutally obvious that Congress cannot trust what the Pentagon tells them, even if it is under oath. It is obvious that the CIA, the Pentagon, are engaged in a full-blown disinformation program to disparage and undermine whistleblowers from our national security community, to throw under the bus whistleblower Dave Grush, one of the nation's highest ranked, respected national security officials that held more clearances and security tickets than probably just about a very small handful of people, which is why he was chosen to be on the UAP task force, why he was involved in providing the presidential daily brief, because he had the security tickets. People like Lou Elizondo, who understood that what he saw that was going on in our national security establishment was an affront to the Constitution of the United States. So you have people like the former director of AARO, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, who would rather go on media and throw whistleblowers such as David Grush under the bus and spin conspiracy theories that people who are some of the highest vetted folks in our national security establishment, people that have undergone lie detectors as part of maintaining their security clearances, that have had their neighbors interviewed by FBI and others as part of the approval and the adjudication of their security clearances. Sean Kirkpatrick, the former AARO director, picked by the Pentagon, by the way, not by Congress, he is out there spitting out disinformation, throwing under the bus people that have put country first, put country above self. These are people that have sacrificed put at risk their families. These are people that have thrown away any chance of getting another job in either the government or private contractors, any chance or virtually any chance of holding another job that requires a security clearance. And then you've got Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, who already has been caught lying several times to you, to Congress. He was just caught lying about Skinwalker Ranch. You got to be kidding me. This guy says he was at some briefing with the owner of Skinwalker Ranch, Brandon Fugel, who, by the way, is putting in a ton of his own money to figure out what is going on at Skinwalker Ranch. And on Sean Kirkpatrick, who goes on Steven Greenstreet's show, whatever you want to call it, a guy that has made posts that were racist, sexist. Steven Greenstreet of the New York Post, who compared former First Lady Michelle Obama to we'll just say a sort of a racial trope. Same guy that an article was written about just some of the harassment he's done. It's insane. And this is who a high-ranking former intelligence official, Sean Kirkpatrick, who stated on air that people should expect that he is lying to you. And that's the kind of platform he goes on. And then, surprisingly enough, he gets caught lying about the whole Skinwalker Ranch thing. Brandon Fugel shows up with the receipts. He shows up with photos showing Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick sitting in this meeting in the halls of Congress, where Brandon Fugel and other folks from Skinwalker Ranch are presenting the things that they found out. And there's Sean Kirkpatrick in the corner. And he lied to you about that. This is the same Sean Kirkpatrick who, close to or right after he retires at the end of last year, goes on this rant about David Grush and spins this entire conspiracy theory. He trades one conspiracy theory for another, trying to fool you into thinking that members of Congress that sit on House Intelligence, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, members that sit on House Armed Services Committee, senators that sit on Senate Armed Services Committee, senators that sit on Senate Intelligence Community, and their staffers that sit in on these committee meetings in classified settings. These are senators, congressmen, and women who have the security tickets to view the classified product And he wants you to believe that they have all been hoodwinked by a bunch of UFO zealots that happen to have security clearances. If that is not a just unbelievably asinine argument to be coming out of a high-ranking intelligence and Pentagon official that is now working for the Department of Energy, and this is what we are paying him, our taxpayer dollars are paying for Sean Kirkpatrick, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, who is supposedly this brilliant scientist who cannot even write a historical report that would have a passing grade from an 8th grade science teacher. This guy is out there on our dime spitting this kind of garbage to you and to Congress. Sean Kirkpatrick out there insulting, absolutely insulting members of Congress, senators, and their staffers. It's an insult to their intelligence, and overall, moreover, it is an insult to the institution of our legislative branch. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself 2 questions about Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. 1, how can he possibly have the security clearances to work in the Department of Energy when he is apparently running rogue, which I don't think he is. I think he's doing this under instruction from the CIA or whoever else is feeding him this. How he still is holding his clearances, because he would not be working at the Department of Energy, which holds our nation's most valuable national security secrets when it comes to our nuclear stockpile, our defensive, strategic, and tactical nuclear weapons. Sean Kirkpatrick has to have a very high security clearance to be operating in that place. So why he has not had his security clearances revoked is beyond me. And why we are paying for the Department of Energy, and this is to you, the Biden administration, and I'm a Democrat. But why is my administration, why is your administration under President Biden paying for this guy to be on Department of Energy payroll when he's doing nothing but spitting out propaganda and disinformation? It is a travesty, and it is maddening. And when you back up, as I said earlier, and you look at from the 50,000-foot view what is going on, it is clear that it is a full-blown disinformation campaign to try to get Congress to shut the hell up. When Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, her and Senator Marco Rubio knew full well that things were flying around and interfering in our restricted airspace and interfering with air operations, both over in the oceans, in our workup ranges for our carrier strike groups, and above Air Force training ranges, above our Minuteman III strategic nuclear, land-based strategic nuclear deterrent. When Gillibrand and Rubio knew this was going on, and when they had people from pilots, people from our military going in and saying, you know what, this is what is going on, and the Pentagon is not wanting us to talk about it. And you had Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and Senator Marco Rubio actually do something about it at great political risk to their careers. As soon as the Pentagon caught wind that they were going to stand up a congressional committee to look at this, do you know what Undersecretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks did? The same lady that can't tell you where half of the Pentagon money has gone. The same lady who is the lifer at the Pentagon can't even tell you where Pentagon assets are. The same Undersecretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks, who under her legal power can decide that a special access program can be waived or unacknowledged, so she doesn't have to tell Congress or the Gang of Eight what the hell the program is about? You know what she did when she caught wind that Senator Gillibrand was going to stand up a committee? They went into full panic mode, and they stood up their own committee in a panic called AOI-MSG, AIMSOG, Airborne something or whatever. Do you know why Kathy Hicks did that? Because they were scared to death that the Congress, Senator Gillibrand and Marco Rubio were going to stand up a significant committee and get to the bottom of it. So Kathy Hicks at the Pentagon, in a panic, stands up AOI-MSG and says, oh, wait, we got it. We don't need Congress to do anything. We'll look into this. We'll figure out what's going on. And we, the Pentagon, and the intelligence community, will figure it out, and we're going to tell Congress the truth. So look at where we're at now. AOI-MSG turned into AARO. Senator Gillibrand, Marco Rubio, and others had to add amendments and further legislation to deal with AARO, to deal with reporting requirements. Why? Because the Pentagon, the United States Air Force, the intelligence community were doing their damnedest to get around the legislation. They were looking for every single loophole they could. They changed it to anomalous as opposed to airborne, because the Air Force could say, oh, these things that are being observed by our space-based ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance platforms, we're seeing these come in and out of our atmosphere. Members of Congress that have the tickets to view this classified product know that things are coming in and out from transiting in and out of our atmosphere, out of space. That is not from Russia, and it is not from China. They know this. So the Air Force uses the excuse, well, it didn't say anything space-based. It says unidentified aerial phenomenon, which was the original designator for the new acronym for UFOs. That was the Air Force's get out of jail card. Well, it doesn't say space. It only says air. The Navy doesn't have to talk about it because it says air, airborne. Unidentified airborne aerial phenomenon, excuse me. So once again, Congress, Senator Gillibrand, Senator Marco Rubio, and others, they have to go out of their way to produce more legislation to hold the Pentagon's and the intelligence community's feet to the fire, because their job is to lie to them. The Pentagon and the IC, their job is to throw Congress off their track any way possible. So Congress goes, they modify the law to try and hold the Pentagon, the Air Force, the intelligence community, the Navy, hold their feet to the fire so that they comply with the intent of the legislation. Because you have the Pentagon, the IC, peeling wings off of flies, getting into the nitty-gritty as a method to obfuscate, to hide what they know. It's insane. And you cannot expect Congress to write effective and informed legislation when you have essentially the national security establishment hiding out, baring their heads, outright lying to Congress and their staffers. You cannot expect an American president, it doesn't matter if they're Democrat, Republican, or whatever. You cannot expect our elected American president to conduct national foreign policy on behalf of the nation if the Pentagon and the CIA is lying to them. And it's happened for decades, and it's happened regardless of administration. This is the normal way of operating. So here we are. 2017, Lou Elizondo comes out in the New York Times article, reveals that the Pentagon had been lying all along to the American public about UFOs and whether they were looking into them. You have American pilots from the Navy and the Air Force marching into their senator's office, telling them, we are running into these things all the time, and they're not from here. And they're not from Russia, and they're not from China, and you know what? The Pentagon doesn't want us talking about it. And we are scared to talk about it because we will get reprimanded or we may lose our clearance. The Pentagon and the CIA do not want people talking about this. Full stop. And the people in our military that are running into these things, they don't want them talking about it, which is why you had Senator Gillibrand and you had Senator Marco Rubio and others write all of this congressional legislation that is now federal law protecting people in our military and our national security establishment, in our intelligence community, giving them protection to go and talk to their elected representatives about what they are seeing, and to provide protected disclosures under PPD 19, Presidential Protective Directive 19, which is what provides the legal mechanism for somebody that holds a security clearance to talk about what they saw and not have that constitute a unauthorized disclosure, which would send them to jail. Now, Congress has more work to do because there are loopholes in this whistleblower legislation, such that if somebody from, we'll say, Lockheed Martin, who is involved with their UAP reverse engineering program, goes and whistleblows, there's a period of time where they are not protected. They don't have necessary protections prior to it reaching a certain point with the Inspector General. So more work needs to be done on this. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, we have a national security establishment that is not coming clean with you. They're not coming clean with Congress. In many cases, they are not coming clean with the president, of which they work for. They are under the executive branch. So they are in a panic. When David Grush came onto the scene, they were aware it was going to happen. Many of us were aware of David Grush before he went public, but they had no idea of the impact he would have and the impact he would have on members of Congress when he testified. So where did that leave us? It left us with a Pentagon and an intelligence community in full-blown panic mode. How do they deal with it? They deal with it by spitting out disinformation, parading out disinformation folks such as former director of AARO, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, to go out and lie to the public in public settings and in public media settings to try and make all of us doubt what whistleblowers, what American patriots like Lou Elizondo, like David Grush, like Christopher Mellon, what untold numbers of whistleblowers, and I can tell you there are a lot of whistleblowers that have filed PPD 19s. Back in May, we, I'll just say, gave a heads up to certain people in Congress that people were bypassing AARO and filing PPD-19s with the Inspector General. And I told people in Congress exactly why these folks did not trust AARO, because they did not trust Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, who was running AARO. And as we have seen with Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick and his public spinning of magical thinking and conspiracy theories, these whistleblowers were smart not to trust AARO. They were smart not to trust Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. They smelled a honeypot, and that's exactly how AARO was being run. Now, I have no idea if that is the case now. I certainly hope so. I certainly hope not. I think all of us are hopeful that the new director of AARO is going to right the ship. As many of us say, when I say the CIA is lying to the American public and lying to Congress, or the Pentagon is lying to America and the Congress, I don't mean everybody in that organization. Nothing is monolithic. There are good people in the CIA, in the Pentagon, in AARO that are trying to do the right thing. But when you have the leadership who are doing everything in their power to be as unpatriotic as they possibly can, well, then that's a problem. And that cannot be allowed to continue. That is for sure. So people often ask, well, what can I do to help fix this? Do I need to be on a show? Do I need to have my own podcast? Do I need to write blogs? No. This is a team effort. Everyone has a part to play. None of us are more important than the other. My show isn't any more important than some of the other great shows that are out there. We all have an equal part to play in this, and the way you can make a difference at home is to get on the web, look up the contact information for your lawmaker, your congressman or woman, your senator, and call them up and say, you know what? The Pentagon and the CIA is lying to you. It is plain as day. They're lying to you, and they are lying to me. And oh, by the way, I pay for them. I pay for their paychecks and demand change. Because at the end of the day, if all of us just bury our head in the sand and ignore it, which is what the Pentagon and the CIA wants you to do, and they want they want Congress to do, nothing is ever going to change. It will all be the same, and this will be another 40 years from now. I'll be off to wherever something else is. Anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on this whole thing. It's just insane. I encourage everybody to look, and we're going to wrap it up sometime soon here. I know I've been going on to look at the Liberation Times article that is just out. Again, here it is. U.S. government UFO office confirms it has not received information on drone incursions over Langley Air Force Base, and I think it speaks volumes as to the fact that people don't trust AARO. They just don't. We saw the historical report that came out. I think it was the end of February, beginning of March, that Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick oversaw, which was nothing short of just pure garbage, pure bunk. How Sean Kirkpatrick managed to oversee or write something that was just an absolute atrocious report that was riddled with errors. It had a wiki fandom site. It had broken links. It completely ignored the most important cases that Lou Elizondo managed to wrestle out of the Pentagon, the Tic Tac case, Go Fast, and the other one that I'm blanking on. They completely ignored it, and you have to wonder why Sean Kirkpatrick would do that. He said in the very beginning it would rely on the science. Well, he didn't. He provided no evidence as to, or no example as far as what their evidentiary standards were. He put out a report that an 8th grader could have done a better job doing. That cost untold, probably millions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, to produce this report, if not several $100,000 tax dollars. And Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick puts out this kind of garbage? How the guy has a security clearance, still holds them, and why he has a job in the Department of Energy? I would call up my lawmaker and ask them why Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick holds these jobs and why he continues to hold the security clearances and why he continues to speak out of school about a department that he supposedly retired from. But actually he didn't. He is an unofficial advisor to AARO. And we pointed out months ago that Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick had on an unofficial advisory board to AARO members of the UFO gatekeepers of the CIA's UFO UAP back engineering program. Sean had these gatekeepers on the payroll advising AARO. The same people AARO is supposed to be investigating, Sean has on their board. Unbelievable. The level of just abject corruption that we are witnessing from the CIA and the Pentagon is just insane. It is a literal revolving door of these folks exiting the Pentagon and going into a defense contractor, or in Sean Kirkpatrick's case, getting a cushy job working for the Department of Energy, which, oh, by the way, is illegal. Sean Kirkpatrick oversaw the disbursement of funds to the Department of Energy, I'm blanking on the name here, to the outfit he's working for. It'll come to me in a second. I'm having a senior moment. So when you are the director of a Pentagon program and you disperse funds to another agency or contractor, in this case, Oak Ridge National Laboratory, you cannot leave that agency and in turn get hired by that outfit. There is a cooling off period. I don't remember the name of the regulation. I mentioned this a while back, but he shouldn't even be working there. It's insane. I want to touch briefly on the just the fantastic article Christopher Sharp just released right before our show. AARO spokesman told Liberation Times AARO has not received a report or any information on the incident, that being the incident over Langley. He also noted as well that the Navy has not provided AARO with any information. You got to be kidding me. The Navy is understood to be taking a similar stance towards AARO. Following a recent congressional meeting with AARO's acting director, Timothy Phillips, Representative Eric Burleson, whom we hope to have on our show, told Matt Laszlo, another journalist who is actually doing his job on Capitol Hill, as opposed to the people that are at New York Times and other Pentagon mainstream media outlets. carrying the water to the Pentagon. Representative Eric Burleson told Matt Laszlo when Representative Tim Burchett asked about some of the data, they said that they had not received data from the Navy. That's pretty alarming, closed quote. So once again, we have the Pentagon not sharing with their own office, their own UFO office, data on UFO incidents. It is, people wonder why there is so much dysfunction in government, and you are seeing it front and center right here, right now. It doesn't have to be about many of the problems our nation faces in terms of immigration, other, tons, a whole host of issues our nation faces. To just have this add insult to injury is it just absolutely boggles my mind. Chris Sharp notes here that Nuclear Regulatory Commission has had incidents of these drones, and we all know these are not drones. This is some kind of non-human, intelligently controlled vehicle that our commercial nuclear sites are experiencing these things at increased rates. You have Congressman Senator Mark Kelly, as Chris Sharp noted, stating that so often we do not know who these drones belong to. My suspicion is a lot of it is hobbyists. Now, Mark Kelly, who is from NASA, and by the way, NASA is yet another outfit that knows more than what they are wanting the public to understand, has been trying to throw cold water on the UAP issue. I have no idea how much he knows, if anything. But here again, he's trying to throw water on this. It just goes on and on. People need to, if you're not following Chris Sharp in the Liberation Times and the work of Mark von Rennenkamp at the on the Hill, and Ross Coulthart at News Nation, and Matt Laszlo, who is on his own. He works for himself. So I encourage everyone to financially support his work. Is actually asking hard questions of members of Congress on the Hill. Follow these folks and support them. And financially support them too. We always ask for people to donate on Super Chats and Patreon and all of that sort of thing. And as anything in life, nothing is for free. It doesn't matter if you're me doing a show or you're Matt Laszlo beating on the beat in the halls of Congress, or Christopher Sharp taking time out of his day to write good content for you. All of this costs something, and all of us that are not sponsored or under the umbrella of a news organization, we all do this because we care about our country, we care about our topic, we care about the world, and it takes time, and time is always money. So I encourage all of you to support anyone that you think is doing good work and bringing you good content, be it a podcast, be it a show like this, be it articles such as what the Liberation Times is publishing, and what Mark is doing at the Hill. Support these folks, because without your support, doing this work takes an incredible amount of time out of our normal day. We all have day jobs, and it requires our support. So here's the thing. It takes everybody watching this show to get off your butt, make a phone call, write an email, talk to your representatives, and tell them what is going on is not acceptable. We know that the gatekeepers of this UAP program that operate out of the CIA has been the portfolio holder of the UFO UAP program almost since its inception. They run it. They run the back engineering program. They run the Office of Global Access under their Directorate of Science and Technology. And oh, by the way, if you go and you ask any of your members of Congress about what the Office of Global Access is up to, the people that sit on the committees that would know, their mouths are going to be zipped, and you're going to watch them squirm like crazy, because the CIA does not want you to know what the Office of Global Access has been up to and what kind of dirty tricks and dirty things that they have been doing on what they think is on behalf of the country for good reasons, what they have been up to. They don't want you digging, and they don't want members of Congress digging, and they certainly don't want the members of press digging. So when you call your congressmen and ask, your congressmen, women, and senators, and ask, why does the Pentagon and the CIA consider all of you temporary employees? Why does the CIA and the Pentagon think that the people that we put in office are temporary employees and they don't deserve to know a damn thing about this topic? That, at the end of the day, is a threat to our democracy. It is a threat to how our country is supposed to be operating, and it's wrong. And it's time all of us get mad as hell and say, we are not going to take it anymore.